All right, let's see here. What do we got? We got a Glock 17. Grab that guy. Canon AE1 35mm film camera. Very cool. Gonna grab that. Ooh, and yes, this is what I'm after right here. This, my friends, is a dummy grenade or a training grenade. It's a lot like the real thing, only it's got no explosive in it. But it's great for making props or movie magic scenes just like this one. You know, like every hand grenade in Hollywood, you just gotta pull the pin, pop it, toss it, and walk it. Pretty neat, huh? Definitely all of that fire comes out of this little grenade. But that's Hollywood, right? Speaking of Hollywood, our next guest is an actor. He's a very well-known actor, and he played a role on a pretty big show. It's called SEAL Team. Maybe you've heard of it before. He acted as a Navy SEAL, and it's not easy being an actor with the lights and the cameras and trying to act out the role, but it's even harder when you're trying to show the respect and honor due to our nation's fiercest warriors, those being the Navy SEALs, and trying to represent them well, especially when you maybe haven't been a part of the culture. Maybe you're not familiar with operating and running firearms at a high level. Maybe you're not physically fit enough to be running around in full kit all day long, take after take, to try to get the shot and get the shot done correctly. Well, our next guest knows all about that, and he's going to share some of his stories with us. So while I get this stuff loaded up and ready to roll out to the range to create some more movie magic, you guys enjoy this week's episode of Guns and Cameras. Shooters, are you ready? Stand by. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Guns and Cameras podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Best, and today we have with us a very special guest known for his portrayal of the character Brock on a very popular TV show that ran from 2017 to 2024, aired 114 episodes over the course of 7 seasons. Of course, I'm talking about SEAL Team and Mr. Justin Melnick. Justin, thank you for being on the podcast with us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks so much for having me on here. Name's Justin Melnick. Played Brock for the last 8 years, 7 seasons of SEAL Team. Great honor to be able to portray what I consider to be my version of a superhero on television. My career path wasn't really traditional by any way, shape, or form. Just kind of all happened by ending up in the right places and saying yes to the right opportunities and not letting fear stop me from from saying yes to the unknown. So just kind of went with it.
That's awesome. Where are you from originally, and what was your growing up years like, Justin?
Born in New York City, ended up moving up to New Hampshire mid high school or middle school to high school, and kind of spent my entire childhood outdoors, rock climbing, ice climbing, kayaking, paddling whitewater, mountaineering. Just kind of being outside, getting lost, doing dumb shit, getting hurt, and figuring out how to get out of it.
That's awesome. What was your first exposure to the kind of the firearms community?
I would say my first exposure to it, actually, I can tell you the first time I ever saw a gun, I was in Maui at my friend's house. I was like 9 or 10 years old. It was the late 80s, early 90s, and some dude, now I know it as an MP5K, pulled an MP5K out of his truck, um, and ripped off in full auto into the ocean. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the entire world. Didn't get to shoot it. Before that, as a kid, at 7, 8 years old, was learning marksmanship at summer camp with
Mm,
22s. That was a normal thing in the 80s and 90s. Now it's completely shunned, but in a lot of places, but completely normal to learn firearm safety and target acquisition and sight picture stuff and trigger control
mm.
at a young age here.
Yeah, learning it young is super important, I think. That's a crazy first experience. An MP5. It's one of my favorite guns to shoot. I love running the MP5s.
I'm with you on that. I think my favorite gun is the MP5
Yeah,
SD.
that's a good favorite to have.
That's one of my favorite systems.
That's awesome. When did you first get started with cameras? Was it photo? Was it video? What was your first one? Take us there.
It was photos. I was living in New York City, working in the nightclub industry, and my roommate at the time was a very successful model, and all the big photographers had shot her. Karl Lagerfeld, uh, that whole crew of A-list, Mario Sorrente, like all these huge fashion photographers had Richard Avedon, like every single person had shot her. She was pretty successful. I'd say incredibly successful. And I had taken high school photography and got really into shooting on film and processing film and developing it in the darkroom. And one Thanksgiving, we went out to the beach, and I brought my Minolta X700 and put some Ilford in it, and shot some really beautiful shots of her. Her agent at the time ripped her book apart when she saw the contact sheets. This is, old school contact sheets. Ripped her book apart and took all those famous photographers, pulled out their pictures, and stacked her entire portfolio with the images we had shot over that weekend on a beach.
Awesome.
Um, and then everybody was kind of pushing me, saying, "Hey, what are you doing in nightclubs? You should be shooting fashion." I was pretty burnt out in the nightclub world. I didn't really like the people very much. It was kind of not my scene. Um, so then just kind of knew all the models, knew all the editors, knew everybody. So started shooting, kind of putting together my portfolio for fashion stuff and getting little jobs here, little jobs there. Nothing game changing. But that transitioned into combat photography when a buddy needed some pictures of a well that he had built in northern Uganda in an area called Gulu during the reign of Joseph Kony in the LRA.
Crazy.
And that's when fashion got put on the back burner, and I got the bug to tear around to as many war zones as I could, and try and show the world what was happening outside of the walls of New York City.
That's crazy. What was the most memorable experience you had during that time?
Oh God, I mean, memorable like shit your pants kind of memorable, or like, oh, that's touching and warm, or
No,
like
like
just straight up fucking batshit crazy.
yeah, that one. Yeah, the last one.
Think I think the most batshit crazy experience that I had was in Yemen. At the rise of the Houthi rebellion, I went to Yemen and got an interpreter and a driver, and I was trying to get up and get that story. This was probably 2007. So there was conflict. The Saudis were bombing them. The Saudis kind of knew what was happening and who they were, and as an outsider, you kind of look at it and you wonder if it's Shia versus Sunni, or if there really are, crazy people. And I wanted to get in and not only learn, but be able to bring out content and tell that story. And I've always kind of had the mentality of get rich or die trying. Make a name for yourself or get killed doing it. But doing things half-ass and one foot in, one foot out doesn't really work, um, or doesn't really produce results. So went there, ended up in Yemen, used a fixer to help me find like a tour company, which didn't work out. Ended up with this other guy through, out of all places, I actually used American Express to to help. And nope, let me correct that. I'm sorry, it wasn't American Express. That was a Nepal trip. Um, that was a funny story. That was a recreational vacation. But uh, I'm trying to think who connected me with this dude. I can't remember for the life of me. I'm sorry.
No
But
worries.
anyway, get connected with this dude, and he's my translator, and there's a driver, and we're driving up, and we get pretty far outside of Sena. We're like two days of driving out of there. And we get to this like remote village, and there's like a bunch of kids. I'm talking like 8 year olds, 9 year olds. And we're up there, and these kids have AKs. And I'm like, I want this photograph. So I get out and I'm taking pictures, and I leave like my little ruck. Like it was like more of a satchel, like a shoulder bag that
Mm,
I could put my camera in. I had my passport, I had cash, I had my sat phone in it. And this was literally me jump out of the car, grab a couple pics, jump in the car and go.
mm-hmm,
And I take a couple pictures, and I turn around, like I'm like talking through my lens to my interpreter to ask him to ask them questions. And he's not responding. So I turn around and he's gone. And the car is gone. And it's me, my camera, my dick in my hand, and like a whole handful of kids with AKs and don't speak English. So um, I just kind of went back to what I did in South America and the favelas and in parts of really rural Africa is show the kids pictures of themselves,
mm-hmm.
right? It's a digital camera. It's great. You can show them. And these kids hadn't, seen anything like this. So they got all excited and they start posing, and I don't know what to do at this point. I'm like shitting my pants. I got that like vomit rising up into my throat, like no money, no phone, no ID, just me
Mm-hmm.
and my camera in central Yemen. And just kind of like kept walking towards the edge of town thinking I'll figure it out, but away from here,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of like getting them to take pictures with me and walk with me.
Mm-hmm.
And finally got to the edge of town, and behind a brick wall, I saw the car and the interpreter like kind of like peeking around the corner, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And he goes, too dangerous here, too dangerous here. I'm like, man, next time tell me first. You're like, I'll get in the car and go with you. That was pretty terrifying right there. Just like that feeling of being completely alone in a foreign place in a war
Dude,
zone.
yeah, I
So
can't even imagine. That's nuts. Thankfully,
yeah,
that guy
it
didn't
didn't
go
feel
too
good.
far. You know, holy smokes.
I mean, thank God they didn't split with my money and my passport. And
No kidding.
you learn that lesson. Never leave your stuff unattended anymore. Even if you think you're getting out for 2 seconds, throw it on.
Right, keep it close.
It people can tell you things a million times, but until it happens to you, that's the quickest way to learn the lesson. Let it happen. It's not a mistake if you learn something out of it.
100%.
You know, like if it's a mistake if you come out of it and do it again and do it again.
Right. So let's go from there to kind of the introduction of the SEAL Team show. What was the? Can you kind of tell us the background, how you got involved, when it got started, and then your first impressions? Season 1, Episode 1, Principal Photography. Take us through that
Yeah.
startup.
So now I can say his real name because he's out in public. Matt Bissonette. I knew him while he was still at SEAL Team, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and he was on the Bin Laden mission um, that that wrote the book afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
That book turned into into the TV show essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So Tyler Gray, I also knew from years before post-military service for him, but I had no idea that they knew each other, and they both started calling me saying if I could bring my canine down
Mm-hmm.
for the pilot episode. So I did. It was chalked up to it, for me, like, listen, Hollywood's cool and stuff, but um, at that time in my life, I was hyper focused on my police department
Mm-hmm.
and learning how to be the best cop that I could be, and using my network of people to go to schools and just get educated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so I brought my dog down there thinking, okay, there's a bunch of special operations guys involved. There's Black Hawks, explosions, gunfights. I can work odor detection on the sets with my dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, ultimately, like, I didn't even think about the getting paid part of
Mm-hmm.
it. It was one epic training opportunity for 15 days. So I said, yeah, and went down there for it. And right before that, Tyler called me and was like, hey, the gear on this is absolute dog shit. I think were his exact words.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, can you send all your stuff? So I shipped all my stuff um, down to New Orleans,
Mm-hmm.
and we redid all the gear like 2 days before we started principal photography on the pilot. And the originally Sonny Quinn was supposed to be the dog handler,
Mm.
and and the showrunner was just kind of like, "Hey, you look like a Navy SEAL and you know how to use a gun, so why don't you just be the dog handler?" And I was like, "Sir, don't I need to know how to act?" He's like, "Ah, you'll figure it out." So walks off. I'm like, "Cool." So that just happened. And then at the end of the pilot episode, the creator of the show, Ben Cavall, was, I mean, he named my character
Mm-hmm.
Brock. And that's, when the show got picked up, they called me and they invited me to come move to California and help out with the show. And I was super excited because, I mean, I've said this 100 times before and it never gets old and I choke up every time. So I'm going to take a sip of
Mm-hmm.
water. I never, really gave a shit about Superman, and like superheroes to me, like they were never impressive. To me, growing up, like the Mac v. Sog guys, the Green
Mm-hmm.
Berets, the Navy SEALs, like those were superheroes. Those were the guys that captured me and I wish that I had some different life choices at a younger age.
Mm-hmm.
I can effectively say I've spent my entire life with like two regrets and only two regrets, and I fucked up a lot, but only two things I regret, and one of them was not enlisting at 18.
Mm.
Like I wish that I had done, even if I had just done 4 years, 5 years of service, I wish that I had done it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I can relate. I feel the same.
yeah.
Yeah, I can relate, man. What was the so you went from that's a pretty big change in direction from going, you're full throttle into wanting to become the best cop you can become, and then you get a gig or an offer for a gig moving to relocating to California. Take us through that decision making process and then ultimately why you decided to go with the Hollywood gig.
Well, I never gave up the law enforcement. I went to my chief of police and I was like, "Hey, you told me not to do this, and I'm gonna tell him to pound sand, and I'll stay here."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Look, how long is it going to be?" I said, "6 months." He said, "Go do it, 6 months, and come back. I think it'll be a great leave of I think it'll be a great opportunity for you. Like, come back when you can,
Mm-hmm.
and go make a great TV show. It's a great experience to have." And pretty quick in that show, like we realized that I could probably do more for my community by being on TV,
Mm-hmm.
than being there in the town. So, he kept me on the entire time. I go there when I can, work when I can. I handle acquisitions and stuff remotely,
Mm-hmm.
but honestly, being on TV is cool, whatever. Like done like the free shit, that stuff doesn't matter. Making a TV show that our first responders and our veterans, and most importantly, the families of our veterans can watch. Um, the writers did such a phenomenal job. The writers changed throughout the seasons. There
Mm-hmm.
were two or three that were there pretty consistently, um, and and they did a really good job, not only honoring the people that that ultimately paid in blood
Mm-hmm.
for this genre of a story, but they did a really good job of creating a platform where guys that had spent 16 years on heavy paced deployments, affording them an opportunity to sit down with their wives, their kids, and open up an avenue for them to have questions and answers.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the guys that sign up to do these kind of jobs aren't the type of dudes that are going to sit there and say, "Son, I'm so sorry I wasn't at your birthday for 6 years, but I was, killing terrorists in this country that were plotting this bomb,"
Mm-hmm.
But when the kids ask questions, yeah, they're going to answer their kids. They're going to talk about what they've done, and this nation. owes not only the men and women of our armed forces a great debt of gratitude, but the families that allow them to serve is really important. So that I think that's the element of the show that I've been most proud about.
Yeah, and I think that's well respected across the board. A lot of the guys that I've worked with over the years that are soft guys from a lot of even different branches have a lot of respect for what this show did, showing the community, accurately kind of portraying the impact it has on the families, but also the individuals who have to go and do and fulfill on the mission. So I think, yeah, I think you guys crushed it. So good work.
You can thank Spencer Hudnut and Dana and even our former showrunners,
Hmm.
John Glenn and the creator Ben Cavall. Like, these guys and ladies and gentlemen, men and women. I don't
Hmm.
even know how to address people. I don't think I can say guys anymore. Those people really did a banger job on it.
Hmm.
Matt Bissonette, like bringing this to life, the opportunity. I remember on the pilot episode, Cerberus, my dog Dita, is a female,
Hmm.
and Cerberus is a boy, and I'm like, I asked Tyler, I'm like, dude, why don't we just ask Ben to like change the name to Dita and call it a girl? And Tyler's like, shut the fuck up, dude. This is a pilot. The chances of it actually going to air are like one in a gazillion.
Hmm.
And I'm like, and I'm like, check, gotcha. So um, that was kind of, like the probability of it happening. The fact that like everything is just the stars lined up. Everybody put in their work. The writers crushed it. Tyler crushed it on the tech advising. The actors,
Hmm.
I mean, the actors acting, whatever. When you're acting in 100-degree weather in full kit, helmet with a gun, running, shooting blanks, things are exploding, and you're doing it take after take after take, you know, like remember, these guys haven't spent their early, 19 to 24 running around doing this. Like this is all new to them, like learning how to operate your safety and your
Hmm.
dust cover and like target acquisition stuff. Like, these guys picked it up on the fly. They really wholeheartedly believed in their characters and who their characters were. And, um, and it never got lost on any of the boys, like how much it meant to give 100% every day. Because the guys that are watching this show have lived it for real, and we can't give them anything but the best. And that was really cool.
That's awesome. What was it like going through the transition? Because originally, so the show gets greenlit after the pilot. The first few seasons, right, were shot for broadcast TV, and then towards the end, the last few were for streaming. How did one take us through? Okay, you got greenlit. Now you're shooting this series, and then so first impressions. What was those first few episodes like? And then what changed and what stayed the same when you went from broadcast to streaming?
So the first 13 episodes, which is what we got ordered for 13, which
Hmm.
means we had to shoot an additional 12 after the pilot. And then in our eyes, the show was done. So for me, that was training.
Hmm.
I still wore my plates. I wore a real helmet. Like I treated it as training. Like even if I wasn't shooting blanks at someone, I was still taking sight pictures and mimicking
Hmm.
the trigger mechanics, right?
Hmm.
I was taking the opportunity to work my dog in different environments between scenes. If we were on a location, I was out finding something to work my dog on.
Hmm.
Um, she came to set with me every day. It was in my eyes the most ultimate financed realistic urban training out there. Um, Now when 13 got picked up into 22, it was like, okay, let's put fake plates in. Still wore a real helmet, I think, for a bit of it, and then come season two, we took bump helmets, filled in the holes, and repainted them,
Hmm.
to save our necks. Um, and started trying to lighten the load a little bit, except on AJ. AJ was fun. Max and I and Tyler would load up rocks in his backpack, in between scenes and stuff. Just The pranks. I think the thing that I miss most about that show is the brotherhood.
Yeah.
Like we all had a great time. We all had a really good time shooting that. It was hard work, but everybody, I think will look back with fond memories and you know.
There it is. Ugh, almost left without it. You guys, we're halfway through this week's episode of Guns and Cameras. That means it's time for me to tell you it's been brought to you by 1156 Productions and by Tokens of Valor. Tokens of Valor is my boutique ballistic jewelry company where I take components like brass and copper from real live bullets and I put it together with sterling silver to create one-of-a-kind, hand-forged wearable works of art, just like this. If you're interested in getting a piece made for you, just find me on Instagram at Tokens of Valor, send me a DM, and we'll get something started. You guys, another fun fact, we have a live brand store and website. It's called gunsandcameras.io. If you go to that address, you can find all kinds of fun information about guns and cameras, including past episodes. There's merchandise. It's also the only way you can register and get entered to the Guns and Cameras Awards for 2025. All that information is up on the website, so if you're interested in participating in the GCAs for this year, be sure to go to that website and check it out. It's been awesome having Justin Melnick, the Justin Melnick, or Brock from SEAL Team, as this week's guest on this episode. It's been awesome to hear some of his stories, and we got a whole bunch more of his stories coming up in the second half of the episode. So while I get back to getting on the road and heading out to the range with my cup of joe, you guys enjoy the rest of this week's episode of Guns and Cameras. Yeah, talk us through the character progression for Brock. Initially starting out, your and Tyler's characters were kind of there to fill out the team and provide principal support in certain roles. But then towards the end of the series, you guys have to actually start acting and develop these character identities. Can you take us through that, what that was like for you?
Yeah. So initially, Tyler and I were there to do the driving so that we could do things practically, do the CQB, the explosive breaches, things like that. You know, and fill out a team because nothing looks more like fake than when you've got four dudes, or three dudes running big style missions. Like, that's why we brought an alpha team in season one on some of the hits.
Mm-hmm.
To expand the world to make it feel more realistic. You don't have to show them do everything, but you have to show them make entry in exfil and have
Mm-hmm.
some, comms calls back and forth. Um, as it progressed, obviously the fans started speaking, and the fans were like, "Oh, we love Trent, we love Brock, we want to see more." And on the writer side is, like you need to include everybody on the team. Now, one of
Mm-hmm.
my massive collateral duties was all the equipment on the show. So, I worked kind of consulting for the props and the wardrobe department. Um, so it's one of those things. It's like either stop doing that and focus on the acting portion of it. Cool, whatever. But honestly, like I love equipment. I was using that show as a development space for other real life units.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the hardcore fans would recognize some of the gear I was wearing and wouldn't be able to identify it. So like before it would go to real units, I'd go down and run it for, 8 weeks, 9 weeks and put it through its paces and give my feedback to the manufacturer, and then we'd pump it out for the boys. um that the elements were real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is real. No bullets were getting shot at us, but any kind of ballistic testing you're doing in a lab anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So um I love the equipment side of it. I wouldn't trade. I don't know. I like being on camera. It's fun. It's fun to be in car chases. It's fun to be jumping in and out of moving vehicles and flying in helicopters, especially, when you've got like the best people in the world flying those helicopters. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it takes a dangerous thing and makes it really safe so you can enjoy it. But I wouldn't have wanted to sacrifice the equipment side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, versus, you look at other shows out there, they're great shows, Terminal List and Linus. I enjoy watching them. They're great. Now they're trying to copy very similar to the looks of what we did on SEAL Team.
Mm-hmm.
But, the downside is they don't have people there that can talk to the writers and say, oh, well, this piece of kit is on you. If you rewrote it this way, you could actually use this capability, which is open source. So we're not giving away tradecraft or
Mm-hmm.
any secret, classified capabilities that could hurt guys downrange. But and that was one thing SEAL Team was really good at is, the writers would listen. If there's, a new gadget that I got in the mail to check out, like they would encourage me to bring it up to the writers' room and show the guys. Um, and say, oh, this would be really cool in this kind of scenario. If we were doing this, like we could steal IP addresses, using the radios we're wearing. And you'll see Linus went to the MPU fives. I saw Terminal List too had MPU fives in them, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll be impressed that, if they actually use the MPU fives to their capabilities. If they're doing, skydiving scenes, if they're, pre-breathing before they jump,
Mm-hmm.
if the tandem rigs are correct, if the rucksacks are rigged correctly, like those are micro details that Hollywood generally doesn't care about,
Mm-hmm.
but the executives at SEAL Team did. They wanted it nailed in,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, and I think that and this is from a consumer's perspective, it appeared to me that you guys use practical effects as much as possible over VFX for a lot of the combat sequences and stuff too, which I think made a big difference as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if we were doing an explosive breach, we were priming in instead of using, 16 feet of 100 grain det cord with some data sheet, like
Mm-hmm.
we're using maybe 1 foot of 15 grain, and adding an air cannon in the back, to give
Mm-hmm.
that extra poof, that just shoots air and like cork, right? So
Mm-hmm.
were things real? 100%. Were we shooting blanks? God, we shot millions of blanks on that show. If we were getting incoming mortar fire, there'd be air cannons in the ground, pushing all the debris in the air up. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't have the overpressure like and the shrapnel like you would in real life. So it's still special effects.
Mm-hmm.
You overlay some VFX on stuff, but that's why sometimes you'd see fire coming out of our suppressors
Mm-hmm.
because we were actually shooting blanks.
Right. Man, crazy.
But if there was like a V bed coming at us, like there'd be a car hooked up with special effects in it on a tow cable with like 150, 200 feet of wire cable redirected to the back of an F-350. And on action, that F-350 would punch it and tow that car right in, and then special effects would set it off and blow it up, and then in post production add some extra flame. Because you can only go so big
Mm-hmm.
in California.
Dude, that's awesome.
But it was cool.
That must have been a
It was
blast.
really cool.
Like, pun intended.
Oh, it was
That's
fun.
awesome, man. So, 8 years of your life, 7 seasons, developing characters, working with these guys. Take us through the end of SEAL Team. What was that like? And then what do you got going on now? What's coming up next?
Um, just finished working on an awesome Brad Pitt movie called Heart of the Beast.
Dude, right on.
I think, I mean, I cried. I'm a pussy sometimes, dude. Like, I cry pretty easily if it's the right storyline, but it's one of the most beautiful scripts I've ever read in my life. I play one of his Delta Force teammates in some of it. I think everyone's gonna love this movie. I don't want to give too much away about
Mm-hmm.
it. Um, but it is absolutely a love letter to our special operations canine handlers,
Cool.
and I'm really excited for that to come out. Small part, but got to do all the equipment for it, which was really, really fun and challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, and let's see what else. Got a couple TV show things I'm trying to spin up. We'll see, man. Getting a TV show to go live is kind of like winning the lottery, man. There's a lot. of scripts out there, getting them from an idea to a script to getting ordered, to shooting a pilot. It's a crapshoot. It's fun. It's a fun challenge. There's some really great people out there that I'm excited for. There's a couple shows coming down the pipeline that I think I could find a happy spot in, but you never know until you're on set eating a bagel, man. It's all just a hope. The end of SEAL team was awesome. I'm completely satisfied with what we put out there. I'm proud to have been a part of it, and I prefer knowing it was coming to an end rather than finding out at the last moment. Kind of it personally gave me the ability to charge into that gunfire. You're gonna die. Go out in a glorious hail of bullets, man. Wave that flag high and cherish every moment you have with the people you love, and when it's over, you say goodbye, and everyone disperses into the wind like a dandelion flower. So.
Well spoken. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So, what do you do in the meantime? So, while you're working on the kind of the entertainment space, working on these new stories and taking these roles, what do you got going on in the background? You mentioned ranching. What are you doing for fun?
Have a ranch. Have cows, chickens, ducks, work my dogs, help other law enforcement agencies and some military units with aviation, kind of canine related stuff. High angle insertion and extraction stuff, getting dogs in and out of ships, buildings, helicopters, um, or getting them into it. What else? Invest in beverages. Have a couple of cactus water called Cali water, which is really good. You can go check it out at Costco, Walmart.
Cool.
I'm really excited about that product. It's healthy, it's hydrating. Looking at a few other businesses, and I just like to live life, man. It's
I do.
if it feels good and it's helping people, I continue to do it. And if it doesn't make me happy and or people don't seem to have the need for it, then I just find something else and look for a place to be an asset. Help.
That's awesome. Where did your passions for dogs come from? Let's talk about your co-star on SEAL Team, Dita, right? Played Cerberus. When did you first get
Mm.
started in the canine scene, and what were some of the challenges while you were training her on set for SEAL Team?
So I had her before SEAL
Right.
Team. I was down in Texas training, and my roommate had Dita. He's a city police canine handler, one of the best handlers I've ever seen in my life. And his police dog was one of the scariest dogs I've ever met. Carlos, God rest his soul. Oh, he's not with God. He's down. He's down next to Satan right now, biting people still. That dog was one of the best police dogs I've ever met in my life. I refused to let him out of his kennel and feed him. I was petrified of him. But just such a great police dog. So my roommate needed to get rid of him for personal, or get rid of her for personal reasons, and one of the guys in Texas was trying to buy Dita, and I was shit faced, and I was like, "Fuck that! I'm gonna take her." I didn't have a car. Like I lived like on a motorcycle with my roommate, and then the rest of the time I was traveling for work. So he's like, "You don't, how are you? You're not even set up for it. How are you going to do it?" I'm like, "I'll figure it out." So I figured it out, and joke's on me because I wouldn't have my wife, I wouldn't have my kid, I wouldn't be in California if it wasn't for her.
Wow, that's crazy.
So yeah, pretty lucky on that. She's up in the pool swimming right now and enjoying her retired life. One of the challenges on set. So dogs pick up on human energy, and you know, there's a lot of anxious energy in Hollywood. I've never seen a profession with so much eczema, stress induced illness in my entire life, other than Hollywood. So, they get amped up. We'd always joke around when Dito was on set. We'd tell the director to go Clint Eastwood
Hmm.
because Clint would always work with horses. So instead of saying ready, set, action, Clint would be, okay, act,
Hmm.
or just start the scene, you know? And, so Dita on ready, set would start barking and getting amped up because she expected someone to pop out around a corner that we were going to shoot or whatever.
Hmm.
So, figured out a remedy for that is start the scene, slate, roll cameras, say action, and walk her in and go right into the scene, and people start acting, and good to go.
That's awesome. I like it's cool. It's cool
Yeah.
to hear that you had a crew, and again, I think this comes out on the final product. Is that you had a crew that was willing to adapt and overcome certain situations for the sake of making the story better, which I don't know if that's necessarily super common. Which kind of leads into the next question of how do you see you came into film industry 2017. What have you seen change in production over that period of time, and then now post SEAL team still working in production? What's changing in the industry now that in 2025?
The quantity of projects that are out there, the financial abilities that productions have um, to make their
Hmm.
work. LA is a ghost town. CBS Radford when we started was packed with talk shows, game shows, TV shows, movies, and now there's nothing on it. It's empty. There's nothing shooting in California. It's sad. It's sad. The world is going towards streaming and YouTube content and podcasts and things that cost very little to produce but captivate large numbers of audience that you can sell advertising to. So, um, it is what it is. I think, TV shows, cable television,
Hmm.
even the streamers are having issues right now. So, who
Yeah,
who
big time.
knows? Who knows where it goes or what happens?
Well, and I think that
Um,
this says a lot too, because the next question is: do you think that if you were going to try to pitch the pilot of SEAL Team today, do you think it would get greenlit?
if nothing else had come out about SEAL Team 6, if there were no other shows,
Hmm.
probably not. Listen, there's always going to be a need for military content, law enforcement content, cop shows, fire shows, hospital shows. Um, I don't know. I don't know if SEAL Team wasn't a cheap show to make.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. It's a really good question, man.
I think yes. I think maybe it would. It would be probably different. You'd probably have different budget constraints. I think you would still have. I think you'd probably still get a green light. Again, passion being a big part of it. But I don't know. I mean, I'm like my toe. Like for me, I run an independent production agency in Washington State, and have a lot of ambition to try to shoot bigger projects. But the landscape is changing, right? So now it's still kind of about what you can do on a bootstrap budget. So I think if you knowing what you know now, especially part of the community you're plugged into, I think you could find funding, but I think it would be independently sourced and then produced independently. But
Yeah, probably.
yeah, but
I think also an element like of Iraq, Afghanistan, people are over. People just want to put it behind them.
yeah.
Guys who've lost friends there and given blood and sweat on that soil kind of are pretty heartbroken about how we ended it there.
Hmm.
That's personally speaking for me, that's, like there's probably I can imagine that's how a lot of Vietnam uh, veterans and supporters of the armed forces and
Hmm.
felt, maybe back then. But yeah, it's pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah. All right, changing gears, coming up towards the end. We got about 10 minutes left before we hit an hour. What are you? We kind of covered this earlier, but just to kind of refresh, what are you stoked about coming up? What thing are you really excited about coming up in the next couple months?
Mud and busting. Taking
Mud.
my 4-year-old mud and busting next weekend.
That's awesome.
Oh, wow. Life is really exciting. There's a lot of projects I'm working on that I can't really discuss. But I have a good time. I get to do a lot of really cool stuff with some really incredible human beings. Um, I've been really lucky, and the way my life has been structured is I end up all over the place in different countries at least once a month with awesome dudes. And
Mm-hmm.
get to do things that you could never do anywhere else. Some of it I can put on social media, some of it I can't. But you know, I really tried to live my life by not living in the matrix and just kind of like dream what you want to happen and keep digging that sand until it stops collapsing on you. I keep pulling it out of the hole and keep going deeper, uh, and keep trying to do cool stuff and keep trying to help people, keep trying to make a difference. Be unique. If it's interesting to you, you need to do that because in the end of the day, you live life for you, not for somebody else.
True. That's great. And then last question to kind of summarize everything. We kind of got one already with the Yemen story, but let's go from recent history or just from the SEAL team production. This is the oh shit moment question. Everybody has an oh shit moment. From SEAL team, what was an oh shit moment that comes to mind?
There really weren't any. I think the closest time where I was like, oh shit, we were shooting a helicopter sequence and we were barreling in the 60. And mind you, our 60 pilot on that, this guy named Alex Anduzzi, probably the best pilot I've ever flown with. And anyone I've ever brought on his aircraft, no matter what their background in special operations, are like, that dude can push this aircraft. He's just phenomenal. So we're flying legs out and we're bombing down this valley with like 20 feet on either side of our blades, like, 65, 70, 80 knots, like legs starting to tilt, just kind of like at that precipice of being able to fly legs
Mm-hmm.
out. And then we come down over this lake, uh, and we do this crazy tail kick turn, which is fun because he's flying and we're all really, really sure. Like one of the former Ranger guys was throwing up in his shirt. Like that's how insane it was. And it was awesome. It was a great, great flight. But I guess over the comms, and I wasn't on ICS, they were like, everybody pull your legs in because we need to make it look like the aircraft is empty because they wanted to just double up instead of having to land and do that. So we're coming back and like we pull like some positive G's and everyone's like the crew chief's like legs in, legs in. And like for me, that means we're about to crash, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
get your legs inside the bird. So, we come up to this positive thing where I think he's going to nosedive and, he starts sliding forward to gain airspeed again. And I'm thinking like we're about to burn into a lake, and I was like, ah. And I remember like throwing in and like grabbing my helo lanyard
Mm-hmm.
and just sucking it down on my chest and curling up into a ball. I'm like, well, it's been a good ride. Um, and then we just take off and like I don't know if I missed the part on the brief or what happened or if it just I didn't know. Maybe some of the other guys weren't as cynical as I was thinking we were burning in, but yeah, but other than that, like you gotta understand, we do really cool stuff on SEAL Team, and like, yeah, I've broken myself on that show. I mean, a couple times. Max broke himself. Like when you're running around in full kit in the hills, like it's tough on your body jumping off of stuff, tackling fights,
Mm-hmm.
but everything is so controlled, right? Like there's safety coordinators, stunt coordinators. Um, it's as controlled as you could imagine. Like if you were having your 4-year-old kid do something and trying something new, like you're going to make it as safe as possible. But you can trip and fall, and which happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're running and you lose your footing and you bounce on that golf sequence when we were in the golf carts
Mm-hmm.
in season, I think it was season 2. Like I actually fell out of the golf cart. The seats were all slick, and I did a big turn and I just went whoop and slid right out. And AJ just grabbed the wheel and put his foot down, and then you'll see me chasing the golf cart with my stick. And it wasn't intentional. It literally was trying to catch up to the golf cart. Um, but yeah, it's done really safely. Like there's no qualms about that on any level. So there really isn't any oh shit moment there because the producers would think of every angle, the stunt coordinators, the aerial coordinators. They have contingencies upon
Mm-hmm.
contingencies on contingencies. So it's done very
That's
safely.
awesome. Justin, thank you so much for your time. We're at an hour. I don't want to take you again. Like I said, I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot of irons in the fire, but I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be on the Guns and Cameras podcast. Yeah. You got any last words? Any words of wisdom before we wrap this up?
Sid, if you're taking words of wisdom from me, you're fucked. But thanks for having me on. Great time. Love your content and honored to be able to spend an hour with you, Josh.
Awesome. You guys, thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Guns and Cameras with Mr. Justin Melnick. Justin, thanks again. You guys, stay tuned. We got a lot of more great stuff coming in the works. So, yeah, we'll see you next time. Have a good night. All right, you guys, that's it. That's the end of this week's episode of Guns and Cameras featuring Justin Melnick. It's been a real honor and a pleasure having him on the podcast as a guest. I appreciate him taking the time to share his stories of how he got started, what it was like making SEAL Team, some of the future projects that he has coming up. So you guys, be sure to go follow Justin. Here's his Instagram. It's pretty easy. It's at Justin Melnick. Check out some of the cool work that he's doing, and be sure to go check out some of the movies that he's going to be in coming up. It's pretty awesome to be able to have him a part of our community. And yeah, so thank you, Justin. Huge thanks. I appreciate you. You guys, be sure to stay tuned. We got a lot of good stuff coming up here as we get back into the regular swing of things with Guns and Cameras. We got a lot of great guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. And we're trying to do big things. So I appreciate you. Stay tuned. Be sure to give us a follow on YouTube, Instagram, Apple, Spotify, the works. And yeah, it's going to be great. I'm going to go take a nap now. I'm tired. Coffee let me down, man. All right. You guys have a good one. We'll see you next time.